On June 24th, Jessica Campbell was not only celebrating another birthday, but unfortunately, she was commiserating with her team, the Coachella Valley Firebirds, after losing in the finals once again to the Hershey Bears. 9 days later, and she now is an assistant coach for the Seattle Kraken.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what do you say, Seattle hockey fans? Welcome to another episode of Locked On Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we bring you your favorite team every single day. If we are meeting for the first time, my name is Erica L. Ayala. I am your host of Locked On Kraken. I am also the founder of Black Rosie Media, where we empower Black women and melanated creators in sports media. I also contribute to CBS Sports as a women's basketball writer and analyst, as well as a hockey NHL writer and analyst. Before we get into today's episode, I want to let you know it's brought to you by our friends at Gametime. Now, again, I love when I hit the road. I know I can get great deals, whether it's games, theater tickets, other performances. I know I'm going to Gametime. So that's why I want you to download that Gametime app today. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL, and that will get you $20 off your first purchase. Now, I have to tell you, this is going to be a quick bonus episode. We just heard from the new Seattle Kraken coaching staff. Day 9, if you count the 24th, but 8 full days into Dan Bylsma's time as a head coach. We have some trades. We have some players assigned and re-signed to 2-way contracts, 1-way contracts. But the big one coming from Dan Bylsma himself and not the overall organization is that today, on July 3rd, he announced his coaching staff, and he announced that Bob Woods and Jessica Campbell will join him and the remainder of the coaching staff in Seattle this season. We talked about this on the show. There were 2 vacancies from the Dave Haxtell era, and now they have been filled. I'm going to go to the press release here, a little bit about Bob Woods. He has a coaching career that spans nearly 3 decades, including 13 years spent as an assistant coach in the NHL with stops in Washington, Anaheim, Buffalo, where he crossed paths with Dan Bylsma, and most recently Minnesota, where he was on the coaching staff for parts of the last 7 seasons. This will mark his second time working with Dan Bylsma because, again, they worked together in Buffalo during the 2016-17 season. He has had roles such as general manager, head coach, and assistant coach at AHL, ECHL, and WHL stops. Wood's primary focus will be on the team's defense while also running the power play with assistance from Campbell. Quote, after spending a season together in Buffalo, I'm excited to be reunited with Bob here in Seattle. Bob's resume speaks for itself. He has worked with some of the NHL's top defensemen in Washington, Minnesota, and Anaheim, and I know he will bring a valuable experience to our locker room. Of course, we know Jessica Campbell. She got her, North American coaching experience with the Coachella Valley Firebirds, where she headed up the power play. I've mentioned it before, but she was also an assistant coach for Team Germany at the 2022 IIHF World Championships. She worked alongside Philip Grubauer, and she will become the first full-time woman assistant coach in NHL history to work behind the bench during the regular season. Now, I want to say behind the bench because if you check out Allison Lucan, friend of the podcast, she mentions a list of women who have worked in the National Hockey League and have been on coaching staffs. So I think it's definitely worth mentioning that while Jessica Campbell is holding a very specific first, that there are women that have been in the National Hockey League. And I have to admit, not all of these did I even know. I really appreciate Allison Lucan, as always, dishing out more deep analysis when it comes to how we think about, in this case, history being made. So this is from Allison Lucan's thread here. Dawn Braid in 2018 was a skating coach for Arizona. Emily Engel Natsky, 2022 video coach for Washington, and both had full-time roles. Haley Wickenheiser, who I'm familiar with, was an assistant and senior director of player development with Toronto before being named assistant GM. Kendall Coyne Schofield filled a similar role in Pittsburgh. Barb Underhill has been working in the NHL since 2009 as a skating coach / consultant. And just as Jess has, Corey Chevery worked behind the bench in a guest role during an NHL game for Pittsburgh last season. And then Allison Lucan goes on to say, there are many more trailblazers, including women in the front offices. Let us make today a moment to celebrate and recognize Jess along with all women who are making a difference in hockey everywhere. Allison Lucan, I certainly am going to speak for myself because, well, it's me speaking. You are one of those people for me. And I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate your mentorship. And I'm certainly... I can't imagine that I'm the only one who has benefited from the work that you put forth. So thank you, Allison Lucan. This is a great thread. It's a great day. And just a few other things, because again, I'm going to have a longer episode. The news just kind of came at a time where unfortunately I have to switch gears, but we know that there's going to be so much to dive into, including that we had our second day of open practice for the Seattle Kraken prospects. Another day in the books for Disco Dan Bylsma himself. And I thought what Bob Wood said was really interesting. Some of the things Ron Francis said were really interesting. And of course, I was very much in tune to what Jessica Campbell was saying as a woman who is in hockey naturally. But there were a few things, some not surprising, some where I felt that she opened up a little bit more. We've talked about this before. I've had Jessica on the podcast, unfortunately not on video, but we had her introductory press conference when she was a part of the Coachella Valley. But also she's been in a one-on-one conversation with us right here on Locked On Kraken 2 separate times. And so we know that she loves developing players, and that is the role, as Dan laid out today, that she will play. Now, she's going to work under Woods when it comes to the power play, and I think that's good. I've been texting with our Locked On Kraken insiders and, saying, hey, even I said that the way the power play, especially in the playoffs, kind of didn't really come together. I wasn't really sure. I was a little bit concerned that could be that maybe Jessica Campbell would not find a role on Dan Bylsma's staff, but she did. And I like that she's going to continue to do exactly what she does for her players, set the roadmap and guide the players. I thought Dan had a really great analysis of, especially with Ty Cartier, how Jessica has been able to do that. And again, we'll talk about that a little bit later in the week. But here are 2 quotes that I really, really liked from Jessica Campbell. I tried to really just keep my eyes fixed on what matters every day, she said. And she went on to say that though I'm honored to be a first, I don't want to be the only. And I honestly don't feel like I'm the only in this organization, she said. And she talked about the roles in ownership. Of course, we know assistant general manager, things of that nature. I just talked about Allison Lucan, and she mentions other staff roles. There's a long list of incredible women that are doing phenomenal jobs here. And she goes on to say that she wants to do her part behind the bench. Then I liked this, where she's talking about the role that Dan Bylsma has played as a mentor. And we've talked about Dan Bylsma, he had a little bit of a treacherous road to get back into the National Hockey League. But it seems that even through that, as he's finding a way to get more comfortable and confident and figure out his own path in coaching that he's also been helping other people. I mentioned the 2022 World Championships. Jessica Campbell mentioned it as well. Following World Championships, I knew what I wanted to do as a coach, but I didn't know what was next as a coach and where I would fit. She goes on to say, Dan saw the potential in me and brought me into his staff. And much like Bob Woods said, he gave me a voice and empowered me to be nothing but myself. And this is exactly the kind of leadership that I'm expecting to get from the Seattle Kraken. And it definitely starts with Dan Bylsma. But as Dan outlined for us just moments ago in the press conference, he's putting a lot of faith, a lot of trust, a lot of responsibility in Jessica Campbell in this specific area, the development, the player development. She talked about having her coaching business and how that was the first time as she started getting more clients that she really felt that there could be a future and that she could do this not just on a one-on-one basis, but maybe in a team environment. So listen, there's a lot of newness happening for the Seattle Kraken, and we needed a fresh look, a fresh start. How this will play out, we don't know until we start playing the games. And it was really interesting to hear Disco Dan in his presser earlier today, or yesterday, excuse me, talk about that first game circled. Speaking of, we have the full schedule for the Seattle Kraken. We didn't do an episode yesterday. Just again, it's a busy time of year for yours truly right now, but we will be back with a full episode tomorrow, July 4th, and of course, Friday, July 5th. And we're going to talk about the trades and the acquisitions. We're going to talk about the players in dev camp right now, and we're going to have a special guest. At least that's the plan. So make sure you stay, as always, locked on Kraken. As I mentioned, though, earlier, want to let you know that today's episode, a short little bonus episode for you, brought to you by our friends at Gametime. I love using the Gametime app when I travel out of town, like I will be in a couple of weeks. Well, actually next week and then the week after that. I'm going to LA, I'm going to Phoenix. I know that I can pick up my mobile device and check out the Gametime app, an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, among other places. If you are looking for killer last minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes all the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets. The zone deals, you can save even more money when you choose a section and you let Gametime choose the seats. Seat views, get a panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy. So again, take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. And you know what else is guaranteed? That I will end every episode reminding you to be kind to yourselves. Listen, we all make mistakes. Things happen. We got to roll with the punches, but make sure you give yourself grace, be kind to yourself. And when you're able to do that for yourself, that also empowers you, hopefully, and gives you the energy to do that for others as well. Hold fast, stay true, and we say loud and proud always, let's go Kraken. I'll catch you on the next episode. Peace out, everybody.